In the heart of the American West, one name echoes through history louder than a rifle shot: Annie Oakley. We all think we know the story, the spunky cowgirl from the dime novels and the Broadway stage. But the real story, the true story of the woman born Phoebe Ann Mosey, is far more remarkable than any legend. She wasn't just a performer. She was a force of nature who rose from the darkest depths of poverty and abuse to become the most famous sharpshooter the world had ever seen. She outshot the legends, captivated royalty, and shattered every expectation of what a woman could be. This is the story of how a little girl from a log cabin in Ohio aimed for the stars and hit her mark. Before we dive into her incredible life, if you enjoy true stories from the Old West and the legends who shaped it, take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring the notification bell. You won't want to miss what we have coming. Part 1. The Girl with the Gun. Annie Oakley's life began not on a sprawling ranch, but in a humble log cabin in Darke County, Ohio, on August 13, 1860. Born Phoebe Ann Mosey, her childhood was marked by severe poverty. Tragedy struck when she was only 6 years old. Her father, Jacob Mosey, was caught in a blizzard and, despite surviving the initial storm, succumbed to pneumonia in the winter of 1866. His death left the family in desperate financial trouble. At the tender age of 9, Annie and her sister were sent to the county poor farm because their widowed mother simply couldn't provide for them. From there, Annie was sent to live with a local family, a time she would later describe as slavery. For 2 years, she endured horrific mental and physical abuse at the hands of this couple, whom she chillingly referred to as the Wolves. They worked her to the bone and even punished her by leaving her barefoot in the freezing snow. These years of hardship forged an unbreakable will within the young girl. Escaping the Wolves, she returned to her family, determined to help them. This is where her journey as a sharpshooter truly began, not as a sport, but as a means of survival. She started trapping game before she was 7, and by age 8, she picked up her father's old muzzle-loading rifle to hunt for food for her mother and siblings. She had a natural, almost instinctual talent. Quail and pheasant rarely escaped her aim. Soon, her skill became a source of income. She began selling the game she hunted to shopkeepers in Greenville, Ohio, who shipped the meat to fancy hotels in Cincinnati. She was so successful that by the time she was just 15 years old, Annie had earned enough money from her shooting to completely pay off the mortgage on her mother's farm. She had turned a desperate necessity into a master craft. Part 2. The match that changed everything. The event that would launch her from a local hunter to a national sensation happened on Thanksgiving Day in 1875. A hotel owner in Cincinnati arranged a shooting match between the quiet 15-year-old girl from the countryside and a traveling professional marksman named Frank E. Butler. Butler was a seasoned performer, and he placed a $100 bet, confident he could beat any local shooter. When he saw his opponent, a 5-foot-tall teenage girl, he reportedly chuckled to himself. But his laughter didn't last long. The contest began, with each shooter taking aim at 25 targets. Annie, with calm precision, hit every single one. Butler matched her shot for shot until the very end. On his 25th and final shot, he missed. The young girl from Ohio had won the match and the bet. Frank Butler was more than just a good sport. He was completely captivated by Annie's incredible skill and quiet confidence. He began courting her, and the two were married about a year later. He saw her potential not just as a shooter, but as a star. It was around this time she adopted her famous stage name, Oakley, taken from a neighborhood in Cincinnati where they lived. Frank, recognizing her superior talent, eventually stepped back from the spotlight to become her full-time manager and assistant, a reversal of roles unheard of at the time. Part 3. Little Sure Shot and the Wild West. In 1885, Annie Oakley's career skyrocketed when she joined the most famous show in America, Buffalo Bill's Wild West. Getting into the show wasn't easy. Buffalo Bill Cody already had a star shooter, Captain Adam Bogardus, but fate intervened. A steamboat accident destroyed Bogardus's custom firearms and reportedly affected his balance, forcing him to leave the show. This created the opening Annie needed. Before joining Cody, she had a fateful encounter in March of 1884 with the legendary Lakota Sioux leader, Sitting Bull. He was amazed by her marksmanship and formally adopted her, giving her the name Watanya Cecilia, which translates to Little Sure Shot. The name stuck, and it perfectly captured her incredible ability. For 16 years, Annie Oakley was a headline attraction in the Wild West show, dazzling audiences across America and Europe. Her feats were nothing short of breathtaking. From 30 paces, she could split a playing card held edge on. She could shoot dimes tossed into the air and was famous for riddling a playing card with multiple shots before it could fall to the ground. This trick was so well known that free tickets with holes punched in them came to be called Annie Oakleys. Perhaps her most famous and daring trick was shooting a cigarette from her husband Frank's lips. She performed this feat thousands of times. On a tour in Germany, the Crown Prince Wilhelm, who would later become Kaiser Wilhelm II, insisted that she shoot a cigarette from his own lips. Annie calmly obliged, adding a future emperor to her long list of amazed spectators. Her skill wasn't just for show. She set incredible records in formal competition. In one attempt, she shot 943 out of 1,000 airborne balls. In another grueling feat, she spent 9 hours shooting at 5,000 thrown balls, hitting 4,772 of them, all while loading the guns herself. She proved her supremacy time and time again, whether it was shooting from horseback or even from the seat of a bicycle. Part 4. Character and Challenges. Annie Oakley's success wasn't just due to her talent, it was also due to her masterful control of her public image. In the strict Victorian era, a woman excelling in a man's sport was a curiosity. Annie understood this and cultivated an image of perfect femininity and modesty. She stood just 5 feet tall and always wore modest dresses and skirts. She would even invite reporters into her tent for tea, creating an air of domesticity that charmed the public and the press. This careful image allowed her to be seen as a clever little girl, as Queen Victoria herself reportedly called her, rather than a threat to the established social order. But her life wasn't without hardship. In 1901, she was in a devastating train wreck that left her partially paralyzed for a time. Through sheer determination, she recovered and eventually returned to shooting, though she left the demanding tour schedule of the Wild West show. A greater challenge came in 1903, when William Randolph Hearst's newspapers published a completely false and slanderous story. It claimed that Annie Oakley had been arrested in Chicago for stealing to support a cocaine habit. In reality, the woman arrested was a burlesque performer who had merely used Annie's name. At the time, the real Annie was living a quiet life in New Jersey. Devastated by the attack on her good name, Annie spent the next 6 years of her life fighting back. She filed 55 libel lawsuits against the newspapers that had printed the lies. Her goal wasn't money, it was to clear her name. She said she wanted to purge her character. She won 54 of the 55 cases. The legal fees often cost more than the damages she was awarded, but for Annie, her reputation was priceless. Throughout her life, she was a passionate advocate for women learning to shoot, not for sport, but for self-defense. It's estimated she personally taught over 15,000 women how to use a gun. When World War I broke out, she even wrote to the Secretary of War, offering to raise and fund a regiment of female sharpshooters for the war effort, though her offer was declined. She was a trailblazer who lived a life of financial independence and professional excellence that many feminists of her era were only beginning to argue for. Yet she herself did not support the women's suffrage movement, believing that not enough good women would vote. She was a complex figure who advanced the cause of women not through politics, but through her powerful personal example. Annie Oakley's story is a powerful reminder of what one person can achieve through talent, hard work, and an unbreakable spirit. She rose from the depths of poverty to become a global icon, a businesswoman, an athlete, and a legend who helped shape our very idea of the American West. Her personal motto truly says it all. Aim at a high mark and you will hit it. No, not the first time, nor the second, and maybe not the third. But keep on aiming and keep on shooting, for only practice will make you perfect. Finally, you'll hit the bullseye of success. What part of Annie Oakley's incredible life story stands out the most to you? Was it her triumph over a difficult childhood, her unmatched skill, or her fight to protect her good name? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories from history